This episode of Super Pulp Science is brought to you by Ark Land, published by Cheezine Publications.
Attention, citizens. It's time for Super Pulp Science.
This is Super Pulp Science. I'm Gregory Kamichuk.
I'm Justin Curry of Chasing Artwork.
And we have with us Mr. Scott Ford, who may or may not need an introduction. We'll let him introduce himself.
Hi. I've never had to introduce myself before. I'm Scott. I make comics and I draw things, and that's about it.
That's pretty good.
And sometimes I write things.
What more do you need? And you color comics. You create your own comics.
A Scott of all trades.
Scott of all trades. So for those people who have never heard of Scott Ford before, he is the creative mind and hand behind Romulus and Remus, a graphic novel series where Justin and I first took note of him, and the upcoming Ark Land from CZP. We want to ask you something.
Sure.
How old are you?
How old am I? I am 25.
Okay, so how old were you?
I had to think about that for a second.
Yeah, how old were you when you did Romulus and Remus?
I was 19 when Romulus and Remus was published. I was 17 when I first started dabbling into comics at the end of high school. And
now I'm going to interrupt you briefly here because Justin and I talked about you before you got here.
Okay.
All right. Now you say I dabbled into comics. We dabbled in comics when we were in high school. That meant drawing in the margins. That meant having some lofty idea about one day making a comic. You dabbled by writing, penciling, inking, and coloring freaking pages of comics. Like that doesn't seem fair to the rest of us.
Yeah,
that doesn't happen.
It shouldn't happen.
I don't really know how to explain it. It just sort of spiraled out of control, I guess. High school, high school art projects, you just, the rules are fairly loose in high school art class. So that was really the only formal training I had up to that point. And
as a high school teacher, loose structure in a classroom usually does not result in the student then working super hard to finish things.
Let me clarify. This was not a high school art project. This was after high school. This was in the summer after high school, leading up to university. I was working on Romulus and Remus issue 1. So high school art class was the only, I guess, the background for the formal training I had up to that point, which was fairly loose, and I just saw it as an art project. I just saw it as, I didn't know how long it was going to be. That was the other thing, is I was interested in comics, and I had this idea for a comic, and I just started drawing it, and I was drawing the first 2-3 pages, and then I realized, oh man, I don't even know what story this is. And that's when I started self-teaching myself and researching into comics and how comics are made.
Okay, so you're taking for granted a step here.
Okay.
Which I love that to you it's just seemed like the right step to take. But I feel like for most people who are creatively minded, who say, okay, well, I did 2 or 3 pages of something and I didn't know what it was, usually what happens next is they stop.
Sure.
You said, well, if I'm going to continue, I better be better at this.
Correct.
And then you kept going and then kept learning and then kept trying and you didn't stop.
Correct. Now, keep in mind that process took 3 years to make a 20 or 34 page comic.
See, what I'm keeping in mind and what's bothering me, because I'm going to put you on the spot in a second, Justin, is the moment in my life where I suddenly had the wherewithal, the mental fortitude, and the skill to be able to say, okay, I'm going to make this 42-page comic. I was probably twice your age at that time. So I'm like fascinated by this, the young version of you that is so much farther ahead than Justin or I.
Yeah.
Right? I think jealousy
thanks.
is the word I'm looking for.
I think thanks.
That's
that
why
sounds
we
like
brought
a compliment.
you on the show and poisoned your coffee.
Good thing I haven't drinking it yet.
Why'd you tell him? Oh, it's okay. I have poison lipstick on for later. So
oh my goodness. That's the back half of the show, right?
Yeah. So, Justin, where were you? When did you decide, okay, I can finish a story?
Well, like I remember that, like in high school, what you were talking about. I definitely, here's my 120-page comic idea. It's gonna be about like a tournament of fighters, and there's gonna be every like 2 pages. There's gonna be like a new character, and they're all gonna.
This is real. This is
it's half real. Like,
half you're just making it up on the
well,
spot.
like I remember, sitting with like a buddy of mine who used to draw, and like we were planning out our comic, and like it just, it spiraled out of control so quickly. And we started it, but of course never finished it because it was just like, it was so grandiose in its scale. And
you're planning ideas with a friend in your teens, and it's all super exciting. But once it gets to the hard work, it's not, it starts to be more work, less fun.
So why did you keep going? You're a teenager. You're footloose and fancy free with no responsibilities and, women and boys and all kinds of things around you. And why would you put all your effort into the... Teach us where this
I don't know if I can answer
from.
that. It was just an art project for me. It was just like another drawing that I wanted to make, or I dabbled in mask making a bit. It was just like a fun craft for me.
What was the end goal? Like, where did you see this going?
I didn't actually. I didn't know. I didn't know what it would look like necessarily in the end. I didn't know. I at that point I didn't know how long it would be. I thought it was going to be maybe 20 pages or 12 pages. And it just, the more I started drawing it and writing it, the longer it got, because I was more compelled to flesh the story out better.
Okay, dear listeners, I'm going to just give you, for those of you who aren't familiar, so you might be thinking of a high school comics project. You can imagine what that might be in your mind's eye. What I'm holding is actually the project, which is a perfect bound, professionally created, wonderfully colored, 2-volume slipcase edition of Romulus and Remus, which is what Scott sort of, I should start making comics.
Yeah, I don't know if I have an answer for you, Greg.
We need it.
I guess when I get an idea that I'm passionate about, I run with it. And when I'm super passionate about it, I have to finish it. And it took me 3 years to finally finish that first issue.
But you skipped all the terrible comic stepping stones that it seems like everybody has. Like, Greg, you showed me not too long ago, like, your first comic project.
Oh, I'm sure I had those in my youth.
Your youth, like...
You're cutting me to the bone here, man.
When I was, 10 or 12, I'm sure I made...
Oh, my God.
But I, one page comics that make no sense and, that are so crudely drawn. But
I make those now.
Science.
You won the Manitoba Book Award for this other thing
that
I'm
was
building.
That was a huge honor.
Yeah. If you didn't win that, I was going to be super angry.
Yeah, we had a protest plan in mind if you didn't win. Giant's Well. Tell our dear listeners about the shape of Giant's Well.
So Giant's Well is a 22-foot long comic that folds up into a hardcover book, and it is a, what do they call it, an infinite canvas sort of webcomic style.
Where you just tumble through the story
it's
down.
Sort of an infinitely scrolling, inspired by side-scrolling video games. It's a single image that just keeps going, following this little old man going down this spooky cave.
But then when you step back, you see the whole picture. The whole cave is also an illustration.
Yeah,
like
so Giant's Well. So yeah, I guess to step back a bit, I did Romulus and Remus, issue 1, coming out of high school and in my first years of university. And then issue 1 ends on a cliffhanger, so I did issue 2 immediately after finishing issue 1, just to sort of finish that 2-part story. And then I was finishing my art degree at the University of Manitoba. So so that was a large part of my focus was working on art for my degree, finishing my thesis, and during this time I was dreaming up Ark Land, which is the full-length graphic novel, sci-fi fantasy graphic novel that I am currently finishing up, published by CZP.
So to me, full length is 120 pages, but to you, full length means
256 last I counted.
Pause for effect there. I don't know if any of you understand. Wow.
Which was intentional from the start. Well, actually, I thought it was going to be 200 pages, and then here we are, and it's 50 pages longer than I thought. But I wanted to make something that was the opposite of Romulus and Remus, which was a shorter comic broken up into separate issues. I wanted to make a complete story. There are no plans for an Ark Land sequel. I wanted to make something that felt like a complete epic adventure experience, where I got the impression from a lot of people that read Romulus and Remus that they really liked it, but they felt like there was more there, and they were asking me, when am I going to do issue 3 and issue 4, etc., which who knows, I still may do. But I wanted to have I wanted to create something that can hopefully give the opposite reaction to that provides so much story and so much world building in a single book. So that's
like you're Akira here, right? Like you'll read it all, and then you'll be kind of like you'll have lived in the world long enough that when it's over, you're okay to return whence you came.
Yes, exactly. So I was dreaming up Ark Land while finishing my art degree, and then Giant's Well that I was previously talking about, this infinitely scrolling hardcover book weird thing, was this an experimental comic that I did halfway through the production of Ark Land, because Ark Land was taking
so Ark Land was taking a little while. You thought you'd take some time off and win a Manitoba Book Award and then come back and finish your...
I have a question about...
Yes, my plan was to win the award and then run away with it.
Backwards from that. Romulus and Remus, it looks like the process is kind of similar to what you're doing in Ark Land, right?
Yes.
It's traditional.
It is a traditional, just panel-based comic. I'm not sure how else you describe that.
Top medium, though.
Yeah, workflow-wise, because your jump from this to Giant's Well is quite a departure in medium
style,
and process.
Medium, for sure. So Romulus and Remus is pretty traditionally done. I mean, it's all digitally drawn, outlines and flat colors more or less. Giant's Well is very small scale. It's all vector based. It has the vibe of
small scale, and that is 30 feet long.
Sure. Small scale as in like the characters are very small on the page. And visually inspired by indie video games, as well as classic video games. But I wanted it to have that very atmospheric indie game vibe. And Ark Land is aesthetically is coming back to the Romulus and Remus approach. More actually, now that I say this, it's actually the opposite of Romulus and Remus. Romulus and Remus. Getting into the nitty-gritty, Romulus and Remus was drafted by hand. So I put pencil to paper and drafted out every page of Romulus and Remus, and then scanned those in, and then digitally colored, did the line art and colored it. Ark Land, I'm actually drafting digitally, printing out those drafts at low opacity on 11 by 17 paper, and then inking them by hand, inking each page by hand.
Scotty Young style.
And then scanning that back into then colored digitally. So, sorry, what did you?
Scotty Young. When I first was introduced to that process, it was Scotty Young, like years and years ago. I used to do everything with like blue pencil and then ink over top.
Sure, yeah.
And then I saw him, he would do drawing in blue on his computer and then printing it out on matte paper and inking, and I thought that was like the most genius thing. And
Cool.
Yeah.
I actually had never heard of anyone doing it before.
Oh.
It just came to you.
Yeah.
More or less, yeah.
Cool.
Well, it came to me because I started doing a lot more. How do you say it? Process, concept art. What's the word I'm looking for?
Yeah, you were working on-
reference material. I started making more reference material digitally.
Yeah.
And to translate that, so actually the first, I want to say 20 pages of Ark Land are actually done in the style of Romulus and Remus, where I drafted them with pencil on paper and then inked them and then colored digitally. And at that point, I was starting to make more digital references, specifically 3D models.
Oh, I use 3D stuff too. So what programs do you use?
So I use Google SketchUp.
Yeah, I use that too sometimes.
Yeah, we've discussed about this before, and I can't remember how I discovered Google SketchUp, but it's a bit of a learning curve to figure out all the tools and to create something, just to create something in a virtual 3D space. It's sort of like when you're learning to play 3D video games for the first time. You end up just looking up at the sky and spinning around in circles, and everyone shoots you. So it felt like that learning 3D program. But once you wrap your head around it, I just found it incredibly useful for creating environments and some more geometric character designs, robot designs, especially since Ark Land is very focused on the world and the locations. And so there were specific interiors and some exteriors that I wanted to flesh out architecturally.
So in that way, you become a set builder at first.
Yeah.
Right, and then a director later as you pick your shots within the set.
Exactly. And I think that's how, I guess that's closer to how I think about planning a comic is almost a film, in a film-like way. Maybe in another life I would be making movies rather than comics. Who knows? Maybe I still will.
Yeah. There's time.
Yeah. Actually, closer to making or studying video games than movies.
And those two worlds are merging so rapidly
Sure.
right now.
It's becoming
and
easier.
Ark Land
and
is
easier.
very video game inspired.
Super Pope.
You came up through kind of the fine arts training.
Correct.
Right? Greg, your training, I'm not exactly sure how we categorize your training.
On the streets.
On the streets, on the mean
Just
streets.
another animal.
And my background is in graphic design. And all through graphic design, I was pretty vocal about wanting to do illustration full time. And that was mostly met with like indifference or maybe, yeah. I don't think you can really do that. Or like people just didn't know. It's not like they were being like venomous about it, but it was just like, I don't think that's a thing, And so I was always curious, you who'd already done comics, going through fine arts, and did you tell people you wanted to do comics full time, and what was the reaction?
Yeah, that's kind of interesting because while I was making Romulus and Remus, it was just a side project from the art that I was making in school in my fine arts classes, and very different. So I'm trying to think. At that time, I was in sculpture class and I was in printmaking. So yeah, I was making, I guess, very quote unquote fine art sculptures and illustrations, very much more abstract and conceptual in nature. And then on my off hours, I was making action horror comics. That was the complete opposite. And so actually towards the end of my schooling in my thesis year, I decided I should be making comics. I should, especially since it's my last year, I should try to merge these two worlds, which was interesting slash difficult to say the least, because not everyone thinks that comics belong in the fine art world.
Right.
But I tried, and that was definitely dipping my toe into more experimental comic making. Specifically,
so those tiny tomes and things like that, did that spiral out of that?
No, that was some other weird thing. that was just a weird little zine idea. No, this was more about in a fine art world, because in fine arts, your end goal is making a product that can sit in a gallery. It is about a public display.
Right.
And comics are in a book, usually. And so those projects were about how can I turn a very sort of private, intimate viewing experience of reading a book into something public and into something that's more of an installation and more experimental and breaks out of that book form in maybe unexpected ways.
See, it took us a lot longer in our careers. We just did a show to launch Snowtroll's Daughter and Read and See Through.
Yeah, I'm sitting in your studio right now with the art still on the walls, and I can't stop looking at it. There's just so much.
And actually, what we did is we took over the hallway space around all over the
long,
floor.
boring
I saw
hallway,
it. Yeah. That was.
But that was that same thing. Us trying to find a middle ground between the private experience and a public experience.
Yeah, for sure.
But you were already tackling that, in your youth.
Which, just as a side note, is something we've learned along the way. When you launch Ark Land, when you're all ready, print out a bunch of your favorite panels and pages as like 12 by 18s and posters and canvases if you want. But when you do your book launches, have all those, like, we just kind of take over the bookshelves and like the McNallys and Chapters.
Yeah, we go to Chapters, we just tell them we're going to come and we're going to make a mess. And they say, well, what kind of mess? And then we explain that we're bringing big images from the inside of the book to put outside of the book for people to engage with. And so that gallery training of yours, bring it to the bookstores when you're launching that, because you will find, I already know that you'll think of a better way to do it than we did.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'll be as confident as to go up to the front desk and say, hey, I'm going to make a mess of your bookshelves, and there's nothing you can do about that.
Just do it.
Don't even ask. Okay.
Tell them Greg said you could.
You just say, well, Greg and Justin said this is how you do it.
Yeah.
Mostly Greg, though.
Yeah. Hey, under the bus here. It's warm under the bus.
It's my favorite thing, throwing you under the bus.
So let's jump back around. You've mentioned a couple of times your indie game influence, love, and I'm going through this Ark Land preview, which you had at TCAF.
Yes.
Right? And the very first page is a pixel art arcade console of a video game.
The two green color.
Yeah.
The light green and the dark green.
Which then pans out into
Game Boy.
You said it best, the character's pastime. Like, video games are very much a part of what the characters in Ark Land do, as well as thematic to the story.
Yes. So let's back up a bit. My elevator pitch for Ark Land is The Legend of Zelda meets District 9. It is fantasy meets aliens in a lighthearted, whimsical adventure kind of way. Yes. And so in this world, the main character, Cairn, she plays video games. That's her primary pastime, aside from scavenging alien wreckages.
There's a bit of, it feels a little like there's some Miyazaki influence
yes,
in there.
Yes, absolutely. So if I can just rattle off my influences for this book, Zelda that I already mentioned, Miyazaki, specifically Nausicaa, Princess Mononoke. There's a bit of Adventure Time and some other more modern cartoons in there.
So District 9 is an interesting flavor to add to that mix.
Yes. Maybe not in tone, but in story. District 9 is among my favorite movies of all time.
Striking news. The whole world is watching. The course of human history has changed today.
The ship appears to be stopping over Johannesburg City.
They're spending so much money to keep them here when they could be spending it on other things. At least they're keeping them separate from us.
I I love its approach to science fiction. Looking at a science fiction world from the outside, from the perspective of an outsider, and not telling a story that is about saving the world or some epic war
or an origin story. The District 9 is great because it's not an origin story.
Exactly.
It already happened, and we're just watching the aftermath.
Exactly. So the main story in Ark Land is it's this humble fantasy world, akin to the Legend of Zelda or Adventure Time or something like that, that is turned on its head when these alien arks appear, delivering alien creatures to their planet. And so the story starts 100 years after that first contact, and you see how these worlds have merged and how the mystery of these alien arks and these alien creatures have become part of their nature and part of their culture and part of their religion.
Well, and you have a wonderful little panel here too, which I think really just sets such a great tone for what this story potential could be. The character's sitting there playing video games, and behind her are her three pets.
Yes.
There's a curled up cute little dog.
Yeah.
A curled up cute little robot.
Yeah.
And a curled up cute little alien dog creature with too many eyes. They're all closed, so
Correct.
I'm not sure which are eyes and which aren't.
So those are kind of the three worlds of the story. You've got the original natural world, which is her dog, her straight up normal brown dog.
Yeah.
The most normal dog you could possibly draw. And then she's got her alien dog, which proportionally is the exact same size as the normal dog, but clearly alien, blue and white and covered in scales.
Was that in part to make drawing those two dogs a little easier?
How so?
Like,
if you have them in scale and they have the basic
sure.
The skeletons of those two creatures are essentially the same, so they're a little they're easy to go back
I guess
and forth.
so. I was talking to Greg before the podcast. I just love the idea that it's humorously redundant, that she's got an alien dog, but then she's also just got a normal dog. Because you see alien dogs in science fiction here and there. That's not a new thing, but I love the idea of her also just having a normal dog.
But there's so there's something else deeper at work here than just that, it feels, because you have this great metaphor of the video game meteor drop just before an actual meteor drops.
Correct.
And then you have this character who is operating sort of in this space, this liminal space between these three worlds, and then her pets that hang out around her are all representative of those compass points.
Yeah. So just to finish that three world comparison, you've got the natural world, the normal dog, the alien world, which is the alien dog, and then you've got sort of the mechanical or man-made, human-made world, which is represented by the robot companion. And then you've got her, Karen, the main character, who is friends, companions with those three worlds, but then also on the outside of those three worlds at the same time. She lives on this stone hut way out on the moors, away from civilization. She's a bit of a hermit, but she likes it that way. She's a bit of an interesting, mysterious character in her own way.
Okay, so this book is now picked up and getting published by CZP.
Yeah.
Right?
So Chai Graphic is the imprint.
Chai Graphic.
Yes.
So I know Greg knows the full story
Chai,
there.
Sorry, it should be Chai Graphic, but I think it's Chai Graphic.
I was going to ask because I'm scared to
Chiaroscuro.
ask.
Yeah, you never know, right? And I've published
Then it
4
should be
books with them. I should say it
Chai-graphic.
properly. Yeah, it should be, but
Is it?
I don't know. Yeah, ask Sandra. She will say it right.
I'm afraid to. 'Cause it's been too long.
Yeah.
But probably for a lot of people listening who are very, very interested in, they have a comic idea, how do they get it picked up by a publisher? How did that happen for you? You have the idea for Ark Land. You
Yes.
worked on it a little bit, and then a publisher is printing it. How did that happen?
Yeah, I was working on Ark Land. I was making concept art for it, and I was putting together a pitch booklet or sort of a synopsis booklet of the concept art and story synopsis.
I remember seeing that. It was about 10, 15, how many pages?
Oh, that was like 60 pages.
Okay, you went.
But
yeah.
you had a short pitch that I saw too, like a kind of a
Oh,
summation
yeah.
document.
That one was just concept art. That was
Yeah.
no text.
Right.
So I had this booklet that was mostly for me, but also for friends and colleagues to look over before I actually started drawing out panels, to just read a synopsis of the story and see the concept art, to ask people, hey, before I actually write this book and draw this book, does this sound like an interesting story? Do you see any plot holes?
Right.
Does this concept art, do these character designs look okay? Because I knew it was going to be such a big book, I didn't want to have these big mistakes that I ignored from the start. But yeah, I had this pitch booklet, this synopsis booklet of Ark Land that I gave to Sam Biko, my editor at CZP, and I actually just thought she was interested because she was a friend. I knew her through this convention scene in Winnipeg, and I thought she was just curious, and I was flattered that she wanted to check it out and read it. And then I can't remember how long after that she messaged me, hey, we want to publish this. And I was completely floored because I didn't even know that's where this conversation was headed. I thought she was just wanted to look at what I was working at. And it turns out her publisher, or the publishing company that she was editing for, was interested in this book.
Well, okay, so Ark Land you called a humble fantasy. I think it's because you're a humble dude, right? You also
humble-
sounded surprised when Giants Well was nominated, which shouldn't have been a surprise. And you were like totally like speechless for just a moment when we were at the award ceremony and you got picked, right?
Yeah.
But I think that's why, right? Maybe we've ruined it. Maybe now you'll know you're good, and now everything gets ruined now.
Super Pope!
Self-doubt in moderation. I think that little sprinkle of self-doubt, I think, is always valuable, and keeps you working harder, and keeps you trying to improve on your past work.
Okay, but Scott, that's rare.
And keeps you self-conscious.
That's rare that people like a little
Is it?
sprinkle. It's rare
I don't know. I
for a
don't
little
talk to people.
sprinkle to not turn into a giant, flower-sized 40-pound bag on your back. Like how do you
some
keep
days
it a sprinkle?
is. Some days it is.
Okay, tell us
And-
about those days so we all feel more
geez, let's
better
not
about
talk
ourselves.
about
No, let's talk about it. Tell me about a bad day of making comics.
Bad day of making comics, man. I need to delve deep into my repressed memories.
Can we share? Well, maybe we'll share first,
Yeah.
that you feel right. We'll build some social capital here, some trust here on the podcast, right?
The latest book we just did, my half of it was called Red and See-Through with a fox and a ghost, and I did probably 4 or 5 full pages that did not look right and got scrapped.
Which is like 4 days.
So
maybe 5
also it
days
was
of
the
work.
beginning of the project. So it was like 3 days of kind of frustration because I knew this wasn't quite right. And I just had to keep going and like keep experimenting. But it was like very kind of like, because it was a very short timeline on the project. We put that project together in less than a month. And like a good percentage of that month was done on artwork that was never going to go in it.
Okay, we're going to pull it. We're going to imagine that statement as a photograph. Now we're going to pinch and expand into a little detail. You said, I just had to. But how did you know? Why didn't you just be like, screw this? I'll do something else.
We'd set a print deadline.
So it was you, your deadline
Those are
motivated.
good sometimes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
So I've had that before. I've had artwork that I've scrapped. Maybe not 4 pages worth of artwork. Actually, now I'm trying to think. Have I scrapped that much artwork before? Like on bad days, on days where I'm not confident in what I'm making, or I'm just confused by what I'm making, I'll work on something that I am confident on, and that's kind of the benefits of doing everything yourself. I'm the writer, I'm the illustrator, I'm the colorist, I'm the graphic designer on this book, and so there are a lot of other facets that I can tap into and say, okay, today I'm not happy with what I'm drafting, so why don't I color some pages or ink some pages that are done and ready to go, that I've previously done that I am confident in.
We've talked about that a lot, about being the ability to, like, if you're not good at line art today, don't kill yourself trying to make line art. Switch over to something else.
I mean, sometimes you just need a break too.
Yeah.
I mean,
a change is as good as a rest, as they say.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, sometimes a rest is good too. You know, which I am feeling these days for sure.
Yeah, because you've been grinding out
since January
this 200 pages of work
basically every day. I'm trying to think of a handful of days when I've traveled to conventions or I've had family commitments.
The last convention I saw you at, you were behind the booth.
I was
doing pages.
I was behind my booth inking pages that I had brought along. Yeah.
So is it too much? Did you
It is.
bite off more than you can chew?
I did, but that's okay. It's something. It's a learning experience. This Ark Land has been a learning experience.
Something you had to do, I think, right? Like
yeah. And it's been really valuable. I mean, I'm super happy with the book that I'm making, but it's been super valuable in my artistic process, in my time management process, that I will put towards my next book. And who knows, maybe that next book I'll try some other completely different, maybe not completely different art style, but completely different style of working, of putting out pages, putting out artwork, it's different time management style, and maybe that won't work, but it'll be slightly better. It's all about just learning from past projects and past efforts.
Yeah, that's true. Can I ask you about the writing versus the illustration? So,
sure. I'd say I'm a better illustrator than I am a writer.
Okay, but
which is why I chose comics in the first place.
Pictures are words too, in a way, are they not?
Are they?
Well, aren't they?
I mean, aren't they just pictures?
Well, okay, but if you want to get really metaphysical about this. So like a letter, right, is just an abstract form that we ascribe meaning to.
Sure.
Right? Your illustration.
The letter A is just a weird looking roof.
Right. Exactly. Right?
And
so you have
the letter R is a P taking a walk.
Right. Yeah. So I usually take a walk to have a pee. That's true. But you have silent panels here. Like you have this little panel of Karen looking out the window, right? Pensively.
Yes.
Right? So if I, as the writer of this comic, right, let's say, had given you this script, I would have had to write Karen looks pensively out the window. And then you would have illustrated it, and I would have got credit as the writer.
Sure.
Right? But you drew Karen looking pensively out the window. You wrote that scene. Yeah. You just didn't use a word. You used a picture.
I think visually. I think about images before I think about dialogue, and I think about characters moving through a space.
So then if we stick to the analogy, you write some of the panels visually, and then on top of that, you write some dialogue or some attribution to that.
Sure. I guess, yes, if we're thinking of writing in an abstract sense of the word.
It's
not in a literal
I don't think
sense.
Abstract in a comics sense of the word.
Sure, yeah,
right?
absolutely. Yeah, I'm writing images.
Yeah, and there's good writing in here.
Oh, thank you.
Right? Yeah.
But I'd say Romulus and Remus is a lot more sparse in terms of text. Romulus and Remus, I intentionally put as little text into it as possible because I just wanted to tell this silent story, this very quiet, eerie, action horror story this somber quietness throughout it, and which also just came out of I'm more confident in my images than in my writing of word balloons. So Ark Land carries over from that. It's very image oriented, but it definitely has more text than Romulus and Remus, and I'm forcing myself to put more text into Ark Land when I feel like it's a bit sparse, just because I think writing helps carry your eye from panel to panel better than images alone.
Now, Justin, you also have the same propensity to resist being described as a writer first, but you do the same thing.
Yeah.
You write with pictures.
Well, I'm just as we're talking about this, I'm thinking about my next book and how there aren't going to be any words until the book is almost done. The entire story
Nice.
I'm going to tell visually, and I'll worry about word bubbles and stuff like that
That's quite the impact.
after. If and then only if we need it, right?
Right.
I think maybe that comes from a bit like I've done comics before where the writing came first and I had to try to adhere to that, and I felt like I was being so restricted, like I had to work inside that box. So just in my mind, I'm like, I know what looks good visually in my style. I know how to tell stories visually. So even like this next book that I'm starting, I don't really know what the story is yet, but I'm just gonna make some scenes. I'm gonna make some really cool looking scenes. And
build the set,
and then
move the camera around, figure out where the story
and then the
is.
story is gonna come after that. So I don't.
Yeah.
The writing is like the last thing in my mind. I'm telling the story visually first, which I suppose you could
call writing.
call writing.
You can call it writing. I think we need to empower you, you poor downtrodden artist. That your part is at least,
And then that was.
if not, no, not at least. Your part is more important in the storytelling aspect of comics than the written text.
Yeah.
There, I've said it.
I think that can be said for all of us here, is that we came about comic making from art before writing.
Yeah.
I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely true.
I don't want to speak for you, but
Yeah. Well, I wrote. No. Well, okay. You're speaking for me a little bit because I wrote first. I never considered myself
really?
an artist at all. I was.
I apologize. I
wrote
thought you were an artist before
stories,
you were
I
a
wrote
writer.
Short stories. I wrote all kinds of things.
Okay.
And yeah, so the words came first, and
Interesting.
then I started adding images just so that I'd have some context for some of the things I was writing, be they bizarre or cyberpunk
Right.
or monster oriented.
Yeah. Well, there you go. There's the opposite approach to, putting images down first and then worrying about the text later. You wrote a story, and then you wanted to put visuals to accompany
I wrestled
that text.
with calling myself an illustrator.
Interesting.
The same way you guys wrestle with calling yourself writers, but the
I
truth
guess we
is,
all just wrestle with calling ourselves more than one thing.
yeah, maybe. Why? Why
I
is
don't
that
know,
true?
because we're one person. This is getting very
Tarnishes the
metaphysical.
prestige a little bit.
Does it though? Or maybe it just throws back the veil on all the pomp and circumstance that people have held up as being like these gateways to you owning and controlling your own work.
Wow.
You know, if you need a 5-person team to make a book, then you'll always be only 20% of the
Sure.
process, and therefore a publisher can always own the whole nut. But if you do all the work and all the graphic design and all the concept, a publisher can't come in and say, you couldn't have done this book without me. What you say to them is, I made this book. Would you like to put it out into your distribution stream? Just say, let's do it.
Science.
You're just about to start a new book, Justin. And Scott, you're just about to finish a new
Gonna
one.
start one today, I think.
All right.
nice.
Yeah.
Good day to start a book.
Good
I
day to
think
start
so,
a book.
yeah.
After talking to you, we'll be all fired up. So in starting a project, I know sort of how Justin works. Where are you in the world usually when a new idea strikes you and you say, okay,
Physically in the world?
yeah,
Anywhere.
can be anywhere.
Yeah. You mean like physically where, like, am I
Yeah,
at
like
home or?
do you go for walks? Are you in the
No.
shower? Are you?
New ideas strike me while I'm traveling, just because change of scenery is very refreshing and helps new ideas. I like biking, not so much in the winter, but I like biking. Just it's good exercise, but just seeing a change of scenery.
So a scene change gives you a book idea.
Yes, again, very visual.
Right.
A literal change of scenery in front of my eyes is helpful to conjure up new ideas.
So you've been traveling a lot then, I know, for Ark Land, promoting it, and
bit.
promoting some of your stuff.
I will be more when the book is out. In the new year, I'll be traveling to more conventions.
So do you have a new idea now that you just can't wait to work on?
Oh, I have dozens of new ideas.
Right.
It's a matter of figuring out which ones I want to do next.
How do you choose? Like, how did Ark Land become the one?
It developed the the fastest. I had several ideas that I'm still hanging on to before I came up with Ark Land. But when I thought of Ark Land, it just unraveled. It just exploded way faster than any of those other ideas were developing, and so I just decided to go with it. It
came easily too. Like you didn't have to fight it; it was just all there in your mind.
Yeah. Yes. Initially, yeah. It was the most exciting on the outset. That initial spark was the most exciting, and I think that spark is something very special that I think most people know, whether you write or not. I think everyone has creativity in them, and everyone has felt that spark of a new idea, and it's very exciting. And so Ark Land was a very exciting spark when I first thought of it, and it came together a lot quicker.
So does the spark grow? Like, do you feed it and it turns into a fire for the project? Or now that you're 100 pages and you mentioned you were honest about some of your fatigue in the project here.
Sure.
Is the spark more precious? Like, are you trying to hold on to that idea, that initial feeling?
That spark is why I finish books.
Right. That
spark is that I don't know how to explain it. It's just that point of just pure creativity that just hits you, and it makes me want to finish something. It makes me want to turn that spark into a reality,
into an object.
Something so abstract, something so minimal that was so long ago. There's something extremely exciting about years later being able to hold that spark in your hands as a physical object, as a story, as a world that you've built.
Yeah.
When you work at that spark long enough, then it turns into a raging fire.
Sure.
And you have to stick it out. It's burning everything.
Everything around you is on fire.
And that spark can change for sure. Yeah. I have had ideas that I still have for stories that started out as something completely different, and I'm not sure how you describe it. It's very abstract. It's that spark has maybe joined another spark, and they've morphed into something that's halfway between both ideas. Who knows?
Yeah, well, when you talk about holding the object in your hand, that's the rush for me. When I'm holding a new piece of artwork or a new book that started as just an ephemeral moment on a walk or in a conversation, and I go, oh, that could be something. And then,
yes,
you labor for a long time to bring it from your imagination into the physical world. It's not quite giving birth, but it's as close as a male I can come, I think.
Yeah, creatively. Anyways, and going back to something that I said a little while ago about maybe in another life I'd be making films, or actually more accurately, I'd be making video games because I'm so heavily inspired by video games. I think that's why I'm not, because I love the physical object, and sure, you can hold a DVD or the box for a game in your hands, but that's just the vessel and for the virtual, the digital thing, and that's why, even though I'm heavily inspired by mediums other than comics, that's why I'll keep making comics, because it's this physical thing. It's bizarre when you think about it that way.
Is it? But based on what you've said today, I see some lines here. Like, you talked about art as experiential, right? From the fine arts world.
Sure.
Right? Film is experiential in that way. You have it just while you're experiencing it, and then it's your memory of the film, right?
Sure.
It's not the object of the film that you appreciate, but your memory of the experience. And I think fine art is very much like that. And you have that aspect in what you do, but you also have this indie game feeling, which you're putting into your narrative. And then you also have this quest for the physical, how did you say, like private viewing experience. And you're trying to wrap all those things up into what you do. Yeah.
Sorry, was there
I don't know. Just an observation.
Yes.
Just an observation.
Yes, that is a keen observation.
Is it true, though?
I'm trying to grab a little bit from everything that I love and put it into one thing.
Amazing.
I think that's how you do it. Yeah.
I think that is how you do it. Well, this has been Super Pulp Science, and we're talking about the fire and the spark that goes into making things today.
Got real metaphysical.
Thank you, Scott Ford.
Thank you for having me. This has been fantastic.
And I would just like to close by telling all of you to join the fight and make comics.